Coming up in the Innovation Sandbox today, we're talking about blockchain. It's a hot technology out there, but what does it really do? Why should I care? And how can my company use it? We'll answer those questions and more live in 30 seconds. So grab your shovel and let's go innovate. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Prolifics Innovation Sandbox. I'm your host, Kirsten Kraft. Today, it's all about blockchain. What does it do? What does it mean to us as individuals? And why companies should take a hard look at using it? Jason Kelley, General Manager for IBM's Blockchain Services, is with me here today to answer those questions and more. Then we'll be joined by the prolific CTO, Greg Hodgkinson, to add his perspective on how companies are getting started with blockchain. Now, as always, make sure that you type your questions into the live chat. It's going to be on the right or the bottom of your screen. We'll have time for those Q&A questions with both guests at the end. So let's get started. First up, Jason Kelley with IBM. Jason, welcome to the Prolifics Innovation Sandbox.
Hello, Kristen. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, now before we jump right into blockchain, I do want for our audience to get to know you just a little bit. You've been with IBM for a long time, but before that, you were an Army Ranger. Can you tell us a little bit about that transition, what motivates you, and your role at IBM leading the blockchain services?
Sure, Kristen. You know, it is, you say a long time and you stretch that long out when you said it. So I'm glad that I'm follically challenged and there's no gray for you to see there. I did start my first job out of college was as an Army Airborne Ranger. I was very privileged to be part of the finest military force on the planet. And I can tell you that I learned a lot there. And had my body not given up before my want to did, I'd still hopefully be doing that job. From there, I had many jobs. I helped found and then start a part of a publicly traded company. It was later acquired by Berkshire Hathaway. I worked in economic development as I took a leave of absence from corporate America for public service, thinking that maybe change the world through politics, and that sometimes makes people laugh as well, if you can imagine current state. But that was a very short leave of absence. Then started my own company, co-founded with a family member, ran that for a few years, and then ended up at IBM. So there are many steps along the way, that transition, I would say, from one to the next, starting from the military, where clarity of mission and purpose, and something that we now use in design thinking, where we talk about commander's intent, just telling the team where the hill is, what time we need to take the hill, then letting them move out on their own is what I learned from that. And then as we went through the other business focused opportunities, it was just one startup after the next, and getting things established, growing it at scale. And as you grow it at scale, making sure that the power beneath all that is data, whether it's data in a supply chain for a manufacturing firm, or it's data that's being transformed into what was then a digital agency before digital agencies existed. And now when I'm leading blockchain after a number of startups in IBM, starting new parts of our company in different countries around the world, here I am back in the US with this global mandate to establish a blockchain marketplace. And all of that I just mentioned is based on data. That's all we're doing, is working with data in a way that we've never been able to work with it before.
Wow, I love that. The combination of the entrepreneur background, and actually, it sounds like in your role in IBM, you're in a very unique position where you're an entrepreneur within a very large organization, which is that's a fun place to be.
Fun with big air quotes around the fun I would agree with that. And I will tell you that we are, as much as I like to joke and give our big company a hard time, you know, you're close to 400,000 people. You know, I love to say we're the 109-year-old startup that most people don't know about. But we do and continue to reinvent what we do. Just as we reported our earnings here, 30% of our earnings now come from things that are cloud-based, up 34% year on year for cloud. So when you think about a cloud and platform, you're really screaming the capabilities brought by the B word. And you may hear me saying that because I don't walk around with a bucket of blockchain, but I will tell you that capabilities that are being delivered are really based on that thought that, wow, things can now happen with lower cost of entry. They can happen in a distributed manner across anyone's cloud. So it's a multi-cloud as well as hybrid cloud. So some things legacy sits on premises. So now you can do all those points that used to stop the innovation when you go, oh, I'd love to do that, but those no's have been eliminated. And now it's about how fast can you move.
There you go. Okay, outstanding. Let's drill a little bit more into blockchain as a concept. Now, you were just talking about blockchain in the context of data, right? And I know I've heard you talk before about blockchain being a secure database kind of across multiple players that enables trusted transactions, I think are the words that you've used. So let's make that real for the audience here. Can you maybe give us an example of one of the most exciting blockchain projects that your team is working on?
I'll give you a couple because I want to start with the one that really got people understanding that, hey, this is different. And it started with our great partner in the effort with Walmart, world's largest retailer, also the world's largest and most broadly distributed grocer. And Walmart and the world-class supply chain capability that they have had a challenge with this thought of food safety, foodborne illnesses. Frank Yanas, who's now a commissioner, one of the assistant commissioners in FDA at the time, was at Walmart. And he said, how can we change this? If we're world class at 7 days, that means that we at Walmart are throwing away food for 7 days if there's a suspected foodborne illness. And he said, well, can we just take that multi-step process that's over 7 days? And this is, I'm giving an example, this is data that used to sit in silos in that process from farm to fork, so to speak. And he said, if we put it on the blockchain, that's trusted data, it's secure, and we should be able to see that across every step in the chain. So let's try it. And when they did that, that 7 days was reduced to 2.2 seconds. So overnight, you're able to see the origin of the food and all of those steps and do this, what you might call dispute resolution, or as some people would say, track and trace instantly. So that one, that really got people's attention to say, wow, I can really get at this data sooner rather than later. And that was exciting. Now, if we take that fast forward, that's one ecosystem, meaning Walmart's ecosystem with, in the case of mangoes is what it was. Take that fast forward. And then since I mentioned FDA, I'll stick with that because people tend to think the government is slow to move, not that innovative. And right now, we think about the challenge that we have in that supply chain that first was with personal protective equipment and soon will be for a vaccine. I will tell you that the FDA was very proactive in saying, how do we look at this supply chain that is inclusive of food and drugs? And this is government then saying, IBM, can you help us understand this with blockchain and show us some of the same capability of sharing data, but not just for one capability. So they brought in Merck for the from a pharma perspective. And then from Merck, it was, what about the auditory, who's going to audit this, the audit function? And so we brought in KPMG. And then also, again, we brought in Walmart from a retailer. So now you have consumer retail, government, you have pharma, and you have tech. Someone would say, how do you bring all that? Before blockchain, those were different ecosystems. Those were different players. They couldn't come together. But if you can have a secure platform distributed with trust and transparency, you can bring together industries, you can bring together multiple supply chains and multiple ecosystems. That means ecosystems that don't necessarily work together, but also ecosystems that even within their own enterprise, and we know how that is in a large corporation, they go, well, we can't talk to so-and-so in one corporation. So now if you think about it, you have ecosystems in one corporation talking to other ecosystems within an ecosystem. So you have a true network of networks working together based on blockchain. So there was a couple examples, and hopefully it's vivid enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think that really helps kind of ground this concept. And now, you've also said in other interviews and other talks that you've given that blockchain is hyped. Now, those were, several months back. But I'm wondering, are we starting to get past that, or are more organizations really looking at how to embrace it?
So the quick answer to the first question is yes, it's still hyped. People
Okay.
think that you can walk around with a bucket of blockchain and splash it somewhere in your organization. It's going to solve everything. Or they just finish a sentence with blockchain and then everyone pays attention. So yes, that is
I'm gonna
there.
try that. I'm gonna try that. Start dropping blockchain so that everybody pays attention.
It's the opposite of a mic drop. It's a blockchain drop. You just drop it and people go, oh, I'm listening now. However, I will say that we have moved because of the examples that I just gave you. And in our current situation with the pandemic, people are starting to understand, wait a minute, this thought of trusted data in a distributed network. And when I say network, it's not a technical network, so to speak, but it's a business network. People now go, wait a second, this thing that we call a supply chain isn't just a supply chain, it truly is a value chain, because that value is transferred from one handshake to the other, so to speak. And it's not just a good or a service, but also what's behind that. There's regulation behind there. There's validation and verification that good exists and that it's the type of good. And also they're starting to understand this thought of every handshake's not the same. So when you have a General Motors that says, I'm going to now produce ventilators, that thought of tying into an ecosystem with trust, they don't know where to get ventilator parts from. They aren't going to be the one who says, oh, I have seven buyers for my ventilators. They have to now tie into an entire health provider network that they weren't tied into before. That alone takes a lot of trust and transparency to make those handshakes happen quickly and to get goods and services from point A to point B, because the ultimate test of this B word isn't the technology at all. It's the outcome. And that consumer, are they getting the help they need? And this is why it's so vivid now, because we go, we need PPE, we need personal protective equipment, we need medication. It starts to become real when you say, oh, that's what we mean by customer experience. That's the true customer experience on the other end of this now value chain. So benefit of a very unfortunate situation is that people now have been able to touch, feel, and see with substantial evidence the benefit of the outcome of this technology.
Okay. I do want to bring it into organizations now. So you were just talking a little bit about kind of the ecosystem within the ecosystem, and I know you've spoken before about killing Bob, if you will, the barriers of business. That topic is really near and dear to my heart, because Prolifics, we live that every day. We've been working with clients for years on process automation and optimization, as well as data quality and data trust, and all of those types of initiatives. They're aimed squarely at removing friction and barriers for a business and their ecosystem. Can you speak just a little bit to what you're seeing in this space? What type of companies are using it and what are they doing with it?
Well, I really will call out, and you hit the killing Bob, and I always apologize to my friend's name, Robert or Bob. Yeah, Bob being the acronym for barriers of business, and those barriers are typically somewhere around that data in the center. Just for those who haven't seen that video, I'm really talking about an acronym there, and that you're right. It's about how do you pull those barriers down so that the data can transfer, as we've just given in some of those examples. And I'll give one generalized view of this. When we say barriers, that means something as simple as the example that I gave. I'll use the current situation with the pandemic, where you have non-traditional suppliers. I mentioned GM, but there were also many breweries that said, I'm going to now produce hand sanitizer. I have that capability. So then you have a brewery that's producing hand sanitizer, but doesn't know where to send it. And they're trying to match make with, where do I send it? So the barriers are, it's not even the data that some people think about. They're thinking data for accounting or data for customer. No, it's just simple data of, how do I get my supplies to a buyer, and who are those buyers? So there was a capability that was created called Rapid Supplier Connect, because it was basically a matchmaking service on steroids, if you will, to allow these non-traditional players to see each other, just to see each other. So think of that simplicity of data. And then by coming together, they then said, now I have to transact. So that they pulled down those barriers of business to be able to matchmake and then transact. And then I'll close on this with a great example, because it's a North American-based example. Home Depot has done some great things and have spoken on stage with IBM about some of the things that they've been able to do in their own areas of supply chain, and also the settlement in that supply chain of just knowing, was this good delivered? Was it the right good delivered? Was it accounted for? Was it paid for? And we start thinking about that, pull it down. So that's the barriers. That's the barriers of business that we're pulling down to allow those trusted transactions.
Okay, fantastic. All right, Jason, well, I'm getting the wrap signal. So thanks so much for joining us. This has been really helpful, I know, to me, to kind of better understand blockchain and where it fits. Don't go far though. Make sure you hang out in the wings so that we can bring you back in for the Q&A. So now it's time for our next guest, Greg Hodgkinson. He is the CTO of Prolifics. You may recognize Greg. He's normally a host, but today he's a guest. So welcome, Greg. Welcome to the other side of the sandbox. All right, well, actually, Greg is having some technical difficulties, so we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
All right, well, nice to be with everyone today in the Sandbox. I'm swapping sides for today. Instead of being in the host, I'm actually getting to talk about the subject. So great hearing some of what Jason had to share with us today. I wanted to share a bit about the kinds of blockchain initiatives we're seeing out there. And I'll start by saying we've been exploring blockchain in our innovation center for well over a year or two. And it's been a real privilege to see how our teams have been really kind of rolling up their sleeves and preparing to deliver the solutions that we're actively delivering for customers today. So the kinds of solutions we're seeing being delivered with blockchain all revolve around what I see as joint business processes. That's the way I like to think about that kind of sweet spot for blockchain. So a joint business process with a few different participants, participating organizations, where they're all getting value out of that business process. And what blockchain is, it can be a fantastic example to how, or alternative to how things are being done previous, and how those kinds of business processes would have been implemented, with data exchange, organizations having data silos, and really passing messages around. And that's how the business process would have taken place. Is the joint business process would be literally passing messages using techniques like EDI to unfold the process, which is incredibly inefficient. And if we see certain kinds of journeys like healthcare, if you think about a healthcare journey, and this is an example where we're actively delivering with customers, is healthcare journey. If you think about patients engaging for some sort of healthcare service from a provider, and then you go through this whole claims process where claims are submitted and adjudicated, and eventually paying organizations get involved. So a number of different participating organizations, and you'd be amazed at the complexity within each one of those organizations to actually deliver that business process, and the amount of inefficiencies through message passing and reconciliation of data. So blockchain, again, we fundamentally see as a new solution, a new platform for implementing those kinds of solutions where you have common data, common function, and the positioning we were doing a year ago is now giving us dividends now as we're delivering those types of solutions.
All right, so I think I'm back. Am I back? Okay, great. All right, so
I hear you.
Thank you, Greg, for that overview of kind of what we're doing in the Innovation Center as related to blockchain. It was great to hear some of that. I am curious, could you share maybe with our audience how we got started in our own blockchain training, in our own blockchain journey? A lot of organizations out there are probably wondering, how do I get started? So can you maybe share some of our experience there?
So the start that we did was, we really know that blockchain, although the technology is maturing, and it's pretty mature now, the use cases are still maturing. And that's why we've been rolling up our sleeves, not just talking and imagining, actually building in the Innovation Center, and focused on various areas. We picked healthcare and mortgage banking as areas to build out solutions in. And our teams have, for well over a year, built out pretty advanced solutions in those spaces that are delivering multiple benefits. So for a customer to get started, the one thing about blockchain is it's a very different technology. And that has caused businesses some problems, because the kind of problem that blockchain solves, again, I used the term earlier, a joint business process. So these business processes where multiple organizations are getting value out of them. So the question is, well, how do you fund something like that? As an organization, how do you fund a project where the value isn't just to your organization, but it's to multiple organizations? And where do you get started? So you've got kind of two choices. You can either bite the bullet and decide to build the blockchain, select that business process, build the blockchain network yourself, and maybe offset some of the costs by, when you on-ramp some of your partners, offset the costs then. Or, for some customers, we're seeing that the value is so compelling that even though they invest in it themselves, that's fine. They'll bite the bullet and develop that network, because just for them, the value is enough to offset the business case. Where do you get started? That was the other thing you asked. So I always suggest some sort of POC, because again, you want to be confident in your business case, because if you're going to get a few different organizations together and build this kind of solution or take it to them, you need to have a really strong confidence in your business case. And you really need to do some sort of proof of concept focused on your specific, again, I'll use the term joint business process. It's a very focused business process. And really, prove that that works. So the vision that you have for that process and how blockchain can help actually delivers the value that you think it's going to help. So the question I ask customers, so what if you had that team ready to go to build that POC for you? Well, actually you do. So our innovation center, and again, with all the work that we've done to really run ahead of the curve with this technology, and make sure we understand the value proposition by actually building these solutions, we can take out both cost and some of the guesswork in putting your vision together, and then obviously the cost in producing and building that proof of concepts. And that, again, that can be used to validate your business case. They can then fund the pilots. And we love partnering with customers. I mean, it's exciting space. What's great about this is there's real tangible value in blockchain, and it can definitely allow organizations to, with these, again, I'm going to use the word, overuse it, shared business processes, those joint value processes, make a step change in the value that they can get from them and really optimize those processes.
Okay. All right, great. So, Greg, I love how you popped a little commercial in there for the Innovation Center. So very nice. I know that's your passion right now, and you're really leading the charge there. And I know we're doing some exciting things, kind of experimentation, if you will, with customers using the Innovation Center in support of blockchain proofs of concepts and really testing the concept out. All right, so it looks like now is the time we need to go ahead and move over to Q&A. So let's bring Jason back in, and we will take some questions. So again, if you have a question, just type it into that live chat. It's going to be on the right or the bottom of your screen. All right, so let's get started. All right, so the first question that I've got here is, I think I'm going to start with Jason on this question, but then Greg, you can feel free to chime in as well. It's about the software. What kind of software do you need in order to do a blockchain?
Good question, in that people tend to start right with the technology with regards to what do you need. And the good thing about blockchain is that it's built on open standards for the most part. We work with Hyperledger, Ethereum, Quorum, Corda. So there's multiple platforms there. And I'll speak specifically for Hyperledger. It was the one thing that we started with before we branched out. And so for that question, it's open software that's available. And I'll also then answer the question, which Greg alluded to. It wasn't asked, but I'll say that it's a bridge off of which technology do I use. As Greg said, the technology is proven. There's many ways to do it. The challenge that's been proven is the technology is now about 20% of the game, if not 10%, and 90% is the business process and the business organization, the business design, and has become the heavy lifting of the effort, and I would say the opportunity, because it's where things do have to change. So the software is open, it's out there. There's multiple platforms. The two major, typically enterprise ready, are Hyperledger and Corda.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Greg, did you want to add anything to that, or did Jason cover it?
I think he did. I mean, so I will do him a favor and do a plug for the IBM platform, in that I guess the fact that the technology is so open source has been great, and Hyperledger Fabric is open source technologies. What we've seen with the IBM blockchain is they've then matured that by adding in the tools that you need to operate the platform, as well as the tools that you need to develop for that platform. So kind of raising the bar and making it easier for customers to get engaged and get started. So, the actual platform itself is important, but for true productivity, you need to think about, well, what's the DevOps experience? And they've invested in that area.
Okay. Perfect. Greg, thanks for the commercial. You said what I didn't want to say, sounding like one. So yes, it is about the tool. You got it.
Perfect. Okay, the next question is about security. Could you talk a little bit more about the security of the platform? You've talked about that it is a secure system, but how is that security ensured and monitored? And kind of a follow-on question that came in a little bit later is, can you hack a blockchain? So Jason, I'm gonna point that one to you.
Okay, so let's talk about security. I'll give it in the most simplistic way possible. When you have a distributed network and you have people able to see the data on that network, there's a certain sense of security by seeing, by giving visibility, and also by making actions on that network indelible, which has become a blockchain favorite word. So what does that mean? It means that once something is in it, you can't change it without seeing it changed. So if Kirsten, if it was something as simple as making you the administrator of a network, and then you going in as an administrator and saying, I'm going to change some things in the network, you can't be anonymous. Everyone's going to know it was Kirsten. Everyone's going to know that you came in and you changed it, and you can't unchange that you changed it. So just through visibility, you start to question, well, are you going to go do something bad if we're all going to see that it was you and that we can't change it? So this thought of visibility adds an additional layer, and the fact that you can't fake it, you can't change it. We know it's you. That visibility and transparency, in other words, you hear with blockchain, that drives a certain level of security. And can you hack a blockchain? Quick, you can hack anything on the planet Earth. People love to say, oh, you can't. Well, as soon as I say you can't, they will roll this footage and say, there was Jason Kelley of IBM saying it couldn't be hacked, and look what happened. Well, so I'm not going to say that have we had any security breaches to date with the work that we've done? And I would say that with the work that Prolifics have done, because no. So I can speak for the two players on this phone right now. When we talk of world-class capability, that's what we're talking about. So for now, we are running out in front of those that could potentially hack it.
Okay, we're running a little bit over, but I want to get one more question in here since we had a little bit of technical difficulty. So I'm going to keep going with one more question. Can anyone start a blockchain, and who controls it after its inception? So Jason, I'm going to point that one back to you.
So I'd say, can anyone start? Is yes, anyone could start their own blockchain. And it sounds, anyone could start a garage project. Anyone could start an experiment, a science experiment. Sure. But as Greg said, and I think this is why, I think of Prolifics and an innovation lab, you don't have it because it's a bright, shiny thing. You have it to make sure that your clients get something out of it, that there's an outcome. And so if you think of the most ideal kind of situation, you take IBM, who's currently, yes, we are number one in the world for the moment on production blockchain networks. That's great. We pat ourselves on the back. And you team us with a Prolifics who says, look, we're going to move quickly. We're going to make this happen. We have a method to do this. You step together in a model like that. Shameless commercial, but because I know it works, it's not so much that we're stating facts here. You put experience with a focus on an outcome. I started this discussion with commander's intent, take the hill. So if you can have that kind of take the hill focus of a business outcome and put experience to work, you're not just starting a blockchain, and it's not just anybody. You're actually running, forget the B word, you're running after an outcome. And so everybody can't run after an outcome and get an outcome because they don't have the vision, the capability, the convening power, and all those things. So anyone can start a blockchain, but everyone can't get an outcome that's productive and delivers value. But that's what I see. I see Prolifics doing it. And of course, with IBM, we've been able to do that.
All right, thank you. All right, well, unfortunately, it looks like that's all the time that we have. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Jason, Greg, thank you so much for taking time to come play in the Prolific Sandbox today. So Jason, as a thank you, we have a little gift for you. Can we pop that up on the screen? So, all right, hopefully you can see that. It's a caricature of you in the Prolific Sandbox.
All right. That is great. That is awesome. That will be framed. I love it.
Yes. So you're going to get a soft copy that you can, add to your signature line. And we're going to send you a hard copy as well. So thank you, Jason.
So thank you.
Great. And to our audience, thank you for stopping by, and be sure to come back next Thursday, August 5th at the same time. We will be hosting a panel on the future of DevOps. learn all about how AI is changing the way that DevOps is done. We'll have a full view of perspectives on this topic, from development to data to testing and security. So be sure to join us next Thursday for ideas on how to take your own DevOps to the next level. Until then, keep well and keep innovating.